Tom Thumb. There was once a poor peasant who sat in the evening by the hearth and poked the fire, and his wife sat and span. Then said he, "How sad it is we have no children. With us all is so quiet. In other houses it is noisy and lively." "Yes," replied his wife, and sighed. "Even if we had only one, and it were quite small, only as big as a thumb, I should be quite satisfied, and we would still love it with all our hearts." Now it so happened that the woman fell ill, and after 7 months gave birth to a child that was perfect in all its limbs, but no longer than a thumb. Then said they, "It is as we wished it to be. It shall be our dear child," and because of its size they called it Tom Thumb. They did not let him want for food, but the child did not grow taller, but remained as he had been at the first. Nevertheless, he looked sensibly out of his eyes, and soon showed himself to be a wise and nimble creature, for everything he did turned out well. One day the peasant was getting ready to go into the forest to cut wood, when he said as if to himself, "How I wish there was anyone who would bring the cart to me." "Oh, father," cried Tom Thumb, "I will soon bring the cart, rely on that. It shall be in the forest at the appointed time." The man smiled. "But how can it be done? You are far too small to lead the horse by the reins." "That's of no consequence, father. If my mother will only harness it, I shall sit in the horse's ear and call out to him how he is to go." "Well," answered the man, "for once we will try it." When the time came, the mother harnessed the horse and placed Tom Thumb in its ear, and the little creature cried, "Gee up! Gee up!" Then it went quite properly, as if with a master, and the cart went right way into the forest. It just so happened that he was turning a corner, and as he cried "Gee up!" 2 strange men came toward him. "My word," said one of them, "what is this? There's a cart coming, and a driver's calling to the horse, but he's not to be seen." "That can't be right," said the other. "We'll follow the cart and see where it stops." The cart, however, drove right into the forest, exactly to the place where the wood had been cut. When Tom Thumb saw his father, he cried to him, "See, father, here I am with the cart, now take me down." The father got hold of the horse with his left hand, and with his right took his little son out of the ear. Tom Thumb sat down quite merrily on a straw, but when the 2 strange men saw him, they did not know what to say for astonishment. One of them took the other aside, and said, "The little fellow would make our fortune if we exhibited him in a large town for money. We'll buy him." They went to the peasant and said, "Sell us the little man. He shall be well treated with us." "No," said the father, "he is the apple of my eye, and all the money in the world cannot buy him from me." Tom Thumb, however, when he heard of the bargain, crept up the folds of his father's coat, placed himself on his shoulder, and whispered in his ear, "Father, give me away. I shall soon come back again." Then the father parted with him to the 2 men for a handsome bit of money. "Where wilt thou sit?" they said to him. "Oh, just set me on the rim of your hat. Then I can walk backwards and forwards and look at the country, and still not fall down." They did as they wished, and when Tom Thumb had taken leave of his father, they went away with him. They walked until it was dusk, and then the little fellow said, "Oh, do take me down. I would like to come down, please." The man took his hat off, put the little fellow on the ground by the wayside, and he leapt and crept about a little between the sods, and then suddenly slipped into a mouse-hole which he had sought out. "Good evening, gentlemen, just go home without me," he cried, and mocked them. They ran thither and stuck their sticks into the mouse-hole, but it was all lost labour. Tom Thumb crept still farther in, and as it became quite dark they were forced to go home with their vexation and empty purses. When Tom Thumb saw they were gone, he crept back out of the subterranean passage. "It's dangerous to walk on the ground in the dark," said he. "How easily a neck or leg is broken." Fortunately he knocked against an empty snail-shell. "Thank heaven," said he, "in that I can pass the night in safety." And he got in. Not long afterwards, when he was just going to sleep, he heard 2 men go by. One of them was saying, "How shall we contrive to get hold of the rich pastor's silver and gold?" "I could tell thee that," cried Tom Thumb, interrupting them. "What was that?" said one of the thieves in fright. "I heard someone speaking." They stood still listening, and Tom Thumb spoke again. "Well, take me with you. I'll help you." "Where art thou?" "Well, look on the ground and observe from whence my voice comes," he replied. The thieves at length found him, and lifted him up. "You little imp, how will you help us?" they said. "A great deal," said he. "I shall creep into the pastor's room through the iron bars, and reach out to you whatever you want to have." "Come then," they said, "we'll see what you can do." When they got to the pastor's house, Tom Thumb crept into the room, but instantly cried out with all his might, "Oh, would you like everything that is here?" The thieves were alarmed, and said, "Do speak softly, so as not to waken anyone." Tom Thumb, however, behaved as if he had not understood, and cried again, "Well, what do you want? You want everything that's here?" The cook, who slept in the next room, heard this, and sat up in bed listening. The thieves, however, had in their fright run some distance away. At last they took courage, and thought, "The little rascal wants to mock us." They came back and whispered to him, "Come, be serious, and reach something out." Then Tom Thumb cried again loudly, "I really will give you everything, just put your hands in." The maid, who was listening, heard this quite distinctly, and jumped out of bed and rushed to the door. The thieves took flight and ran as if the wild huntsmen were behind them, but as the maid could not see anything, she went to strike a light. When she came to the place with it, Tom Thumb, unperceived, betook himself to the granary, and the maid, after she had examined every corner and found nothing, lay down in her bed again, and believed that after all she had only been dreaming with eyes and ears open. Tom Thumb had climbed up among the hay and found a beautiful place to sleep in there. He intended to rest until day and then go home again to his parents, but he had other things to go through. Truly, there's much affliction and misery in the world. When day dawned, the maid arose from her bed to feed the cows. Her first walk was into the barn, where she laid hold of an armful of hay, precisely the very one in which poor Tom Thumb was lying asleep. He, however, was sleeping so soundly he was aware of nothing, and did not wake until he was in the mouth of the cow, who picked him up with the hay. "Heavens!" cried he, "how have I got into a fulling mill?" but soon discovered where he was. Then it was necessary to be careful not to let himself go between the teeth and be dismembered, but he was nevertheless forced to slip down into the stomach with the hay. "In this little room the windows are forgotten," said he, "and no sun shines in, and neither will a candle be brought." His quarters were especially unpleasing to him, and the worst was, more and more hay was always coming in by the door, and the space grew less and less. At length, in his anguish, he cried as loud as he could, "Bring me no more fodder! Bring me no more fodder!" The maid was milking the cow, and when she heard someone speaking and saw no one, perceived it was the same voice she had heard in the night. She was so terrified that she slipped off her stool and spilt the milk. She ran in great haste to her master, cried, "Heavens, pastor, the cow has been speaking!" "Thou art mad," said the pastor, but he went himself to the byre to see what was there. Hardly, however, had he set his foot inside when Tom Thumb again cried, "Bring me no more fodder! Bring me no more fodder!" The pastor himself was alarmed, and thought an evil spirit had gone into the cow and ordered her to be killed. She was killed, but the stomach in which Tom Thumb was thrown on the midden. Tom Thumb had great difficulty in working his way. However, he succeeded so far as to get some room, but just as he was going to thrust his head out, a new misfortune occurred. A hungry wolf ran thither and swallowed the entire stomach in one gulp. But Tom Thumb did not lose courage. "Perhaps," thought he, "the wolf will listen to what I have got to say." And he called out from out of the stomach, "Dear wolf, I know of a magnificent feast for thee." "Where is it to be had?" said the wolf. "In such and such a house. You will creep into it through the kitchen sink, and find cakes and bacon and sausages, as much of them as thou can eat." And he described to him exactly his father's house. The wolf did not require to be told this twice, squeezed himself in at night through the sink, and ate to his heart's content in the larder. When he had eaten his fill, he wanted to go out again, but it had become so big he could not go by the same way. Tom Thumb had reckoned on this, and now began to make as violent a noise in the wolf's body as loudly as he could. "Will you be quiet?" said the wolf. "You will waken the people." "Eh, what?" said the little fellow. "You've eaten your fill, I will make merry likewise." And he began once more to scream with all his strength. At last his father and mother were aroused by it, and ran to the room, looking in through the opening in the door, and saw a wolf was inside. They ran away, the husband fetching his axe, and the wife the scythe. "Stay behind," said the man, when they entered the room. "When I have given him a blow, if he is not killed by it, you must cut him down and hew his body to pieces." Then Tom Thumb heard his parents, and cried, "Father, father, I am here in the wolf's body." Said the father, full of joy, "Thank God, our dear child has found us again," and bade the woman take away the scythe so that Tom Thumb might not be hurt with it. After that he raised his arm and struck the wolf such a blow on the head that he fell down dead, and they got knives and scissors and cut the body open and drew the little fellow forth. "Ah," said the father, "what sorrow we have gone through for thy sake." "Yes, father, I have gone about in the world a great deal. Thank heaven I breathe fresh air again." "Where have you been?" "Ah, father, I have been in a mouse's hole, a cow's stomach, and then in a wolf's. I will now stay with you. And we will not sell you again. No, for not all the riches in the world," said his parents, and they embraced and kissed their dear Tom Thumb. They gave him to eat and drink, and had new clothes made for him, for his own had been spoiled in the journey. The end.